InterSystems IRIS is a data platform that contains a high-performance DBMS. It supports a highly scalable database, built-in analytics, integration and interoperability, and a variety of automated mechanisms that make it easy to deploy. At its core, IRIS focuses on flexibility and speed. To accomplish this, it can be scaled both vertically and horizontally to meet users' demands and developers' budgets. It supports a variety of database models, allowing it to be managed from a single environment. Additionally, IRIS contains natural language processing, which uses a bottom-up approach to form relations as you go. It also enables separate applications to be fully interoperable by sharing data and communicating on its platform. The first step to getting started with IRIS is installing it. A free version can be installed from the link below. You just need to create an account and log in. Once you've logged in, you'll be greeted by this screen here. It will ask you for the product you're searching for, the platform you want it on, and the format you want it to be downloaded in. Fill these out and press download to get your file. The installation is a bit different for Windows, Mac, and Linux. For Windows, the file will open up an installation wizard like the one here. Choose the options that best suit your needs and continue through it. Once you're done with this, IRIS should be installed and ready to go. Any changes can be made in the management portal and the launcher itself. For Mac and Linux systems, it's slightly different. To avoid permission issues, uncompress the file in a temporary directory with the permissions here. After this, unzip it using the gunzip command. From here, run the installation as a user with root privileges and go through the process like you would with the Windows installer. To actually start IRIS, type service, the name of the instance you set during the installation, and start. From there, IRIS should be ready to go.
Hi, my name is Love, and I will talk about the use cases and industrial adoptions of InterSystems IRIS. First, why do you use InterSystems IRIS? The main reason is performance, because InterSystems IRIS is optimized for applications that must process incoming data at very high ingest rates while simultaneously executing analytics on the incoming data and on large data sets. But what features of InterSystems IRIS that boosts its performance? First is high performance database management. InterSystems IRIS supports SQL and NoSQL, and transactions and concurrent analytics are scaled in a single DBMS engine. Secondly is interoperability. InterSystems IRIS rapidly connects people, processes, and applications. It integrates with and deploys in any customer environment. Thirdly, InterSystems IRIS has machine learning and analytics capabilities. InterSystems IRIS create and embed SQL, low-code business rules, BI, natural language processing, and machine learning into applications. So, how is InterSystems IRIS used? First, it is used for concurrent transaction and analytics. InterSystems IRIS is optimized for ingesting data while executing concurrent analytic workloads on the incoming data at scale with very high performance for both workload types and with high resource efficiency and low total cost of ownership. Secondly, it is used for rapid data ingestion. Many use cases in manufacturing, IoT, utilities, smart cities, and financial services required the ability to ingest data at very high data rate over MQTT, Apache Kafka, FIX, and other protocols. These are common use cases for InterSystems IRIS. Third, it's used for high-performance distributed SQL. InterSystems IRIS is used in applications that require executing complex SQL queries on very large distributed datasets with high performance and reliability and low total cost of ownership. InterSystems IRIS excels at executing unplanned ad hoc queries on data that has not been called sharded or aggregated. Next, it is used for edge database. The lightweight footprint of InterSystems IRIS allows it to be deployed on the edge or in forked environments. For example, to collect sensor data and push it to the cloud asynchronously. This is a common use case for IoT projects in many industries. It is also used for data fabric. InterSystems IRIS unique distributed architecture provides secure access to any enterprise data for use in real-time processes, analytics, and reporting without requiring any additional infrastructure tiers, making it ideal for enterprise data fabric use cases. Lastly, InterSystems IRIS is used for interoperability with real-time analytics. InterSystems IRIS is used for a variety of digital transformation use cases that bridge data and application silos and embed real-time data-driven analytics into processes that are exposed for internal and public access through full lifecycle API management capabilities. And next, let's see the industrial adoption of InterSystems IRIS. InterSystems IRIS is used mainly in business and finance, in healthcare industry, and in government. First, let's talk about InterSystems IRIS in business and finance. The first example is in capital markets. InterSystems IRIS is used in capital markets because it processes more data in real time and within smaller processing windows and with lower total cost of ownership. It also processes all necessary real-time calculations supporting the trades on the real-time and historical data without moving the data. It reliably handles unplanned market spikes without incident, excessive hardware or cost. It also simplifies architectures for multiple applications spanning front, middle, and back office processes. The next example of InterSystems IRIS in business and finance is how it is used in retail banking. InterSystems IRIS onboard customer faster while complying with Know Your Customer and other regulations. It provides customer with individualized services and offers in real time. InterSystems IRIS also make better business decisions by leveraging a complete, transparent view into all enterprise-wide data. Lastly, it improves productivity by streamlining operational processes that span multiple back-end applications and data silos. InterSystems IRIS is also for fintech, which is short for financial technology projects, because InterSystems IRIS fastest time to value from whiteboard to production for ISVs. InterSystems IRIS also optimized for a wide range of real-time, high-throughput analytics applications throughout the financial services industry. Its superior resource efficiency delivers low total cost of ownership, and it has flexible deployment options, include on-premises, public and private cloud, and hybrid environments. Last example of InterSystems IRIS in business and finances is how it's used in the insurance industry. InterSystems IRIS lowers risk through improved transparency. It also improves customer experiences, and it delivers new revenue generating services by leveraging new data sources. It complies with new industry regulations faster, and it simplifies IT infrastructure and lower total cost of ownership. Next is how InterSystems IRIS is used in healthcare. InterSystems IRIS offers a product in healthcare which is called InterSystems IRIS for Health. It is the world's first and only data platform specifically engineered to extract value from healthcare data. Its advantages over other database management is high high performance transaction processing and analytics. It has proven scalability, robust security, unified development environment, and so it has freedom of choice based on language and data model. So how is in InterSystems IRIS is used in how is InterSystems IRIS for health is used. It is used for developing new digital health application that incorporate data from multiple sources using different standards. It is also used for providing connectivity between medical devices and EHRs to track device performance and measure efficacy, and for predictive maintenance. It is used for innovations around existing information system to deliver new functionality or enhance existing features. For example, enhancing a radiology application with patient data. It is also used for delivering real-time predictive analytics and modeling capability that could improve clinical trial awareness and recruitment. Lastly, it is used for serving up massive quantities of data for machine learning or artificial intelligence and creating health information systems that deliver intelligent workflows with real-time analytics. And in governments, InterSystems IRIS is also used. National and local governments around the world rely on InterSystems IRIS to build applications for healthcare, end-of-life care, public safety, and research such as space exploration. They use this to keep cities connected and communities safe and improve the life of citizens. And that's it. That's the end of the use case and industrial adoptions of InterSystems IRIS.
As for the basic usage of InterSystem IRIS, it is something that you can use to build very robust solutions that are able to scale up to a massive number of users. IRIS is very easy to learn and use and is compatible with both of the InterSystem cache and the InterSystem ensemble applications. InterSystem IRIS also is able to interoperate with other data platforms, which is very useful because when you can interoperate with these other data platforms, it allows IRIS to be able to accomplish more. Another very important thing with InterSystem IRIS is that it has cloud options. Cloud options are very important because now many people use the cloud in order to store their data and access it. So having this database system that is able to use the cloud options like this is very useful. The last thing that I want to mention here is that it can support both big servers and commodity servers. This is done because InterSystem IRIS has not only vertical but also horizontal scaling for their servers. So it allows for them to cover not just the small little commodity servers where there's a lot, but also cover big servers with massive amount of memory requirements. So that is something that is very useful when you're using InterSystem IRIS. InterSystem IRIS is also able to take information from the InterSystems database. This was partly what I mentioned before with it using, as you can see, the cache and ensemble applications. However, because it can do this, it can take the insight from InterSystem Analytics and can immediately turn it into action. Now, by that I mean it can take the insight from these analytics and take the information from this database and then use it immediately in InterSystem IRIS. Another important aspect in the same vein is that it could take information from third parties as well. An example of which being Apache Spark, which is another type of database system that can be used by InterSystem IRIS. InterSystem IRIS is also open platform, which means it's very simple to use. There's a lot of simplicity with the way in which you use InterSystem IRIS in conjunction with all of these other either InterSystem applications or third-party applications. InterSystem IRIS also has multi-model capability, which is something that is very important to this system. You can access data as multiple different models with it, and you don't need to separate your data. And this can all be done from one single environment. And from that single environment, you're able to both access this data and use it without having to separate the data. InterSystem IRIS is also used when you integrate with other systems. And I think the best way to explain this is by using an example of, let's say you're trying to have a transaction. So if a transaction was happening, first the transaction would be taken in by InterSystem IRIS. Then the IRIS would talk to the system's banking applications, the customer service, and an IRIS machine learning model. Then the information gets stored into a IRIS database, where that database is connected to an analytical program, and then it's fed into a machine learning model. The machine learning model is then sends information back into IRIS. This is very useful for, let's say, fraud. InterSystem IRIS can track what is sent into it, then sends that information back into the machine learning and can normally check for fraud. So let's say somebody is using a credit card that isn't theirs. With InterSystem IRIS, it's a very easy way to check and see if fraud is happening in that sense. And so if you've ever been declined when swiping your card or something like that, InterSystem IRIS is a way to do that very easily and quickly. As far as how you would write InterSystem IRIS, it's very similar to SQL with the way it's actually written. But what makes it different is that it uses a lot of native APIs to actually have the code. So let's say you have a native API connected to JavaScript, and then that is connected to iOS and telling it what to do. And so while your iOS code may be not that complicated, the code for the JavaScript that is connected to iOS through this native API can be much more complex. InterSystem IRIS also uses routines and classes interchangeably, and they can call on each other. This is something that is very helpful because because normally you would have to use separate classes and routines, and it would get much more complicated. But with InterSystem IRIS, they can just be used interchangeably and work together in a much easier way. Classes provide object-oriented features also. So that's important because as we all learned when learning Java, the usefulness of object-oriented coding, and the classes are something that can provide that and provide those helpful benefits. The database storage is also integrated into the programming language itself. So that is helpful because that way the database can be used with the programming language more easily. And if you use persistent classes, data is available as objects as objects, SQL tables, and globals. And so it's a way to simplify everything. So you can use data as an object, an SQL table, and a global to make it more simplified for yourself. And you can access globals directly from routines and classes with IRIS, which allows for more flexibility when storing and accessing data. As for when you would use IRIS, some of the most common examples that I was able to find was with healthcare, finance, and whenever you need to use technical interoperability. IRIS allows for an open environment for programs with this interoperability and allows for a more easy way to work programs together. This was, as I talked earlier, about how it could use native APIs, or it can use other InterSystem programs. It's very useful for when you're trying to use other things together in conjecture with each other. And that's the main time when you're going to use InterSystem IRIS.
Hello everyone, my name is Tony Zhou and I'm here to present the limitations of InterSystem IRIS and comparisons with other databases. So firstly, let's talk about limitations. InterSystem IRIS is a relatively new database which is released in 2017 as InterSystem IRIS Data Platform. Even though the company InterSystem is famous and has experience in developing database systems like cache system, and that's where the IRIS's high-performance multidimensional query engine comes from. But IRIS is still their newest product, and it's just entering its 4th year. The community is still young, and user group is relatively small. These problems are becoming the barrier for the InterSystem IRIS to grow up and become a world-class database. As the age of this whole system is young, the newest feature of IRIS, machine learning, is just released recently, which is in March 2020. As we know that the machine learning requires very large amount of experience and test in the field, the reliability and consistency of this IRIS machine learning feature is still questionable. Even though published by a famous company, InterSystems IRIS is still very low on its market share, and some may say it's not popular at all in business and finance use. Of course, InterSystems advertises it as best used for healthcare systems, but it is becoming another reason causing the community groups to stay small. Another problem brought by the age of IRIS is documentation. The documentation of IRIS is very much under coverage. Users complain that it is hard to find official documentations in their website. They have to rely heavily on the community, which is not strong enough. Also, the much heavier use in healthcare than in other regions drives the community imbalanced, and some problems is hard to find right now. The whole thing brings us to the next point, the difficulty in administration. We have talked about the installation process in the beginning. We can see that the InterSystems IRIS is not hard to install, and also very easy to use once you get the point. However, users are having a hard time to manage and admin the system due to the lack of documentation. In the review, some say that IRIS requires a qualified person for its administration. There's a lot of configurations, levels, permissions, etc. It is not easy to configure security with an outstanding configuration. Another reason for the difficulty in management is brought by the market. IRIS is not used by so many companies that there's not so many people in the industry that have the knowledge to manage it. And of course, it won't be taught in the school, and it is also hard to find tutorials online since it's just not as popular as other big databases. This all makes the learning curve for the IRIS to be higher than other data platforms, which hinders IRIS to become more popular. Speaking of big databases, let's look at the difference and the similarities of IRIS with other popular databases. For example, MySQL is one of the most widely used databases in the world. MySQL software delivers a very fast, multi-threaded, multi-user, and robust SQL database server. MySQL is focusing on the relational database model, while IRIS is using multi-model database, including document stores, key value stores, object-oriented DBMS, and relational DBMS, which makes MySQL easier to manage and easier to develop. MySQL uses an open source license, where IRIS uses a commercial license. That's one of the fundamental differences between those two, and that's one of the reasons why MySQL has a much larger community and accepted by more people, since MySQL users have the ability to modify the system so that the system will keep on developing until most users is satisfied. MySQL is released in 1995, which is more than 20 years earlier than InterSystems IRIS, and that's another reason why MySQL is still the first choice of many companies. However, if the IRIS is still commercial after 20 years, I think MySQL is still going to be much stronger than IRIS because it's a community group. The number one shortage on the InterSystems IRIS is the language it supported. It supported 5 languages, which is .NET, C++, Java, JavaScript, and Python. Looking at MySQL, not only is supporting all the language that InterSystems IRIS supports, it also supports ADA, language C, C#, language D, Delphin, Elfin, Erlang, Husky, Objective-C, OCaml, Pro, PHP, Ruby, Scheme, and TCL. MySQL supports a lot more language than IRIS. The same thing happens on the operating system it supports, and all these advantages are brought by the open source license of MySQL. Here is another popular database system, MongoDB. MongoDB is the leading modern general-purpose data platform designed to unleash the power of software and data for developers and applications they build. The world's most sophisticated organizations, from cutting-edge startups to the largest companies and government agencies, use MongoDB to create applications. Our InterSystems IRIS is called a cloud-first data platform, but their focus is on the multimodal integration and easy data migration, while MongoDB is giving developers the freedom to run their applications anywhere with the flexibility to move across private and public clouds as requirements evolve without having to change a single line of code. While InterSystems IRIS is hard to manage, MongoDB is fully managed for operating simplicity, from the basics of deployment automation and monitoring to advanced features like autoscale and intelligence perform advice. MongoDB Clouds gets operations out of your way. Clusters are fully managed, data synchronizations between services is automated, and making adjustments is very easy, just as easy as a button click or API call. On the language and operating system side, MongoDB supported even more language than MySQL. It has these languages that MySQL doesn't support: ActionScripts, CodeFusion, Go, Groovy, Lisp, PowerShell, Prolong, Rust, Scala, Smalltalk, and Swift. We have got enough comparisons with popular ones. Let's look at a database that is in similar position with InterSystems IRIS, FaunaDB. FaunaDB provides a web-native interface with support for GraphQL and custom business logic that integrates seamlessly with the rest of the serverless ecosystem. The underlying globally distributed storage and compute platform is fast, consistent, and reliable, with a modern security infrastructure. FaunaDB is also a multi-model DB and have similar models with IRIS. Also, the release date of FaunaDB is very close to InterSystems IRIS. Yet, from the ranking, it shows that FaunaDB is more popular than IRIS, and here's the difference I found. FaunaDB has the ability to compose queries across different models and multi-cloud hosting environment for continuity and cloud provider independence. These features are more practical in daily use than the data migration feature of IRIS, since we use queries much more than moving data back and forth. Here is the source I cited.